Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
So before I begin the episode this week, and yes, I did say the episode this week. Yes, I know there's normally one on Monday. There's normally the Wednesday episode, which is the Ask Me Anything. And then there's the Friday episode. Well, because of travels, there was no Monday episode. And there was no episode Friday of last week. So that means that this is the first show in about 1 week. Exactly 1 week. Well, give or take a few minutes depending on when I wind up getting it uploaded. But nonetheless, this will be the show for the week. Again, I will be traveling on Friday. This week, I am going to Richmond, Virginia. And the following week, next week, March 11th and 12th, I will be in Denver/Colorado Springs, Colorado. Now, let me talk about real quick before I get into the couple of questions that I do have, and apologies that I did not get the reminders up, but I did get some questions, so I will touch on those, even though they were not necessarily submitted as an Ask Me Anything. They are questions that I definitely want to wind up answering. Now, before I get into any of that or talk about what happened last weekend, I want to make the announcement, because it is the beginning of the month. This is the first show of March. I want to thank and congratulate the people that voted in. I'm thanking the people that voted in the poll for the Freedom Book Club Book of the Month. Thank you to those people. And I want to congratulate Brooke Willett, the author of How to Be a Hobo, on having her book selected as the Book of the Month from Freedom Book Club. You can go vote for the April Book of the Month at freedombook.club. And just a reminder, if you are a subscriber or a member of Freedom Book Club, to make sure that you are logged in before you vote. That way your vote winds up counting extra, as is the perk that becoming a member grants you. The finalist for the April Book of the Month for Freedom Book Club, we have A Spontaneous Order, The Capitalist Case for a Stateless Society by Christopher Chase Rachels. We have a book written by Jeffrey Tucker and Roger Ver. Jeffrey Tucker, of course, the most fabulously dressed man in the Liberty Movement, and Roger Ver, the Bitcoin Jesus. Their book, Bit by Bit, How Peer-to-Peer is Freeing the World. Then we have a book, Immigration, Individual versus National Borders by David Hathaway. And the fourth finalist for the April 2016 Book of the Month is Feardom, How Politicians Exploit Your Emotions and What You Can Do to Stop Them by Connor Boyack. Hopefully I pronounced that last name correctly. Again, you can go to freedombook.club, and remember that Freedom Book Club uses approval voting, meaning that you can vote for as many of those books as you like. And yes, only one winds up being selected, but you're not limited to selecting only one. You could vote for one, you could vote for two, you could vote for three. In theory, you could vote for all four, but really a vote for all four is like not voting at all. So again, freedombook.club. Now let me talk about what happened this past weekend in Biloxi, Mississippi. So I flew in to New Orleans because it was cheaper to do so, and I am all about being fiscally responsible with my campaign and saving money where I can. So I flew into flew into New Orleans, had a friend pick me up and take me to Biloxi. And then that was Friday night. Got in, kind of late, not super late, but, by the time I got back to Biloxi and got some supper and, whatnot, it was fairly late. So recorded the news, went to bed, woke up, and, did whatever I needed to do as far as, like, grooming myself and making myself look handsome for the day, putting on my nice suit that fits very well, I might add. And there are photos, so you can see that I am a lot slimmer than I was a year ago, and I am still baffled. I know that I've lived it over the last year, but I am still baffled by the fact that 1 year ago I weighed 317 pounds, and today I stepped on the scale at 178.4. So that's nearly 140 pounds that I've dropped. And yes, I was as low as 172. But then at Liberty Forum, which was about a week and a half ago, I said I've been a really good boy. And there's all this delicious food that is available to me basically for free at my meals. And so, yeah, I'm just going to, be a pig, basically. I was a very naughty boy during Liberty Forum and wound up gaining about 10 pounds, but that's, started to come off fairly quickly. So I've slimmed down, and I must say that I think that I look pretty good in my suit. And so there was the debate that happened, but before the debate I had a brunch gathering. I had about half a dozen people show up to my campaign brunch, so thank you to those people that showed up, including Tim Fry from Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. Tim Fry lives in Pensacola. He made the drive over to Biloxi to join me for brunch, and it was great seeing Tim because I generally only wind up seeing Tim every year at PorcFest. And, well, he said that his family actually is not coming to PorcFest with him, but he will be there. So PorcFest coming up, of course, at the end of June. So I had the campaign brunch, and then I went and like the politicking sort of thing, the mingling, the schmoozing, if you will, meeting and greeting people from Alabama and Mississippi. And, of course, there was a fair number of people that came over from Louisiana and some people from Florida. So I was doing the schmoozing during the day and into the early evening, had the debate that started about 7:30. It was live streamed, and apparently there was an issue with the lighting. And I'll actually post a link to the video that is up right now from the live stream. There's another video that is supposed to be coming out within a couple of days that when it's up, I will actually wind up posting on the Facebook page for Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, as well as all of the other Facebook pages that I run. But the problem with the live stream, apparently there were too many lights on the stage, so that when you were in the room, everything's well lit, and it just looked amazing. But the live stream, because there were too many lights, it just looked like there were luminous beings up on stage. You could not distinguish faces, and so there were issues with that. But apparently 1,500 people watched at least part of the live stream during the first part of the debate, and then there was part 2 that I'll tell you about.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davy Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs with a story like no other game before. The liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to ZOG.ninja to get your copy of Hypercronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hypercronius. ZOG.ninja. Code FPP.
You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
So before I tell you about part 2 of the debate in Biloxi, Mississippi, the showdown on the Gulf, if you will, I want to make sure that I tell you about a way that you can stay in the free market, or at least keep your money in the free market. That is, if you use free market money and promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world. You need Spendabit. Spendabit is the search engine for things you can buy, you guessed it, with Bitcoin. Spendabit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants, including Overstock.com and Free Press publications. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend a bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin-accepting merchant like I am, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.fppradio.com. So there was the 1-hour debate that had 11 candidates. There were 12 candidates invited. One of those had announced beforehand that she would not be able to attend because of financial cost. Another of the candidates had initially agreed to show up and then had some health problems and was not able to make it. And I hope that he is doing better now with his health. I have not heard an update, but he was not able to show up for health reasons. There was a candidate that showed up and said, I'm a candidate, and since you're going to have an empty podium, can I participate? And the organizers of the event said, yeah, okay, sure. And so if you watch the video, you will see that there's one guy at the end that does not have a banner on the front of his podium. 10 of the 11 candidates had a very fine, beautiful banner, might I add, that had the last name. It had the new logo of the Libertarian Party, which is a giant torch with an eagle as the flame. And then at the bottom it says Libertarian. And these banners look beautiful. And I understand that the Alabama, Mississippi Libertarian parties are going to be either selling or donating those to Florida, possibly to use at the National Convention in Orlando in May. And I would be willing to wind up buying it from whichever party affiliate winds up getting it at the end, or if it winds up going to national, because it's just an absolutely beautiful thing. And so you'll see that 10 of the candidates have these banners in front of their podium, and then there's one guy that doesn't. And if you're just watching the video and you don't know what's going on, you might think that that guy's the moderator. But no, he's not the moderator. He's a candidate, or he's said that he's a candidate. He's not yet been recognized as of the last time I checked the Libertarian Party's website. He was not recognized as a candidate for the presidential election, but nonetheless, he participated in this debate. Not sure how many other debates or conventions he will be attending, and I just went to the Libertarian Party website right now, took a look at the list of candidates that they have, and this particular individual is not on the list. But so they had the 1-hour debate. And then after that, there was a straw poll to where they said they gave all of the, not the participants, the viewers, the people in the audience there in Biloxi, they had 5 tokens, and there were jars for each of the candidates, and they said you can vote, either put all of them in one jar, you can divvy them up as you wish between up to 5, and then the top 5 candidates will go on to round 2. And round 2, apparently the lighting issues were fixed, although I did find out by trying to watch the video that I very much need a tan, because everybody else looks great, but there I am all nice and shiny and luminous because, well, I live in New Hampshire and we haven't really seen the sun. Yes, it's been a mild winter, but, you know, like, I've not been hanging out outside because it's been pretty dang cold. So, nonetheless, that happened, and there was a straw poll after the second part of the debate, and I wound up finishing 3rd, 3 votes shy, or rather, I finished 4th, 3 votes shy of 3rd, and, well, now that brings me to something else to speak about, and that is a debate being hosted by John Stossel on Fox Business, where John Stossel made the announcement yesterday that he will be hosting a debate that Gary Johnson, John McAfee, and Austin Peterson are invited to. And the announcement by Stossel said that they finished the top 3 in an online poll. Not sure which online poll, not sure who was hosting said online poll, or how close the 4th place person was in that online poll. But nonetheless, there is now a petition on change.org that, whether or not it winds up, affecting John Stossel's decision on who to invite to his debate, there is a petition, and I did this because people had been asking me, Darryl, how can I help? How can I get you in this debate? What can I do? And I had been telling people, well, email John. Email John Stossel. Here's the email. Email John Stossel. And, well, I decided, you know what? Let me throw this thing up on change.org. And then what I will do is on Friday of this week, regardless of how many signatures are on this, but as of right now, the time that I am speaking and recording this, right now there are 116 people that have signed this change.org petition. But what I will do is on Friday of this week, so that would be March the 4th, and I will do this when I get to Richmond, Virginia, I will send this petition to John Stossel. So you have basically 48 more hours to wind up sharing this around and signing and asking others to sign. And absent being invited to the Stossel debate, I am working on something in my mind as far as something to sort of counter this. And I still don't know if I'm going to wind up doing just a solo sort of live Ask Me Anything sort of event, or if I want to invite some of the other Libertarian candidates to join me in some sort of event. I'm still working out what it is that I want to do, but if I am not invited to the Stossel debate, I will have something happening as sort of a counter to that so that people can actually hear a Libertarian voice. And that's something that one of the candidates on stage, one of the other presidential candidates, after the first part of the debate, actually walked up to me and said, Darryl, thank you for being the Libertarian voice on stage. So, there are other candidates that realize that I'm the Libertarian voice within the Libertarian Party in this presidential election. You can, of course, learn more about my campaign, donate to my campaign, help me get to even more state conventions by going to DarrylWPerry.com, and I will finally get around to answering your questions when we come back.
In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com. When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
But before I answer your questions, I need to make sure that I tell you about Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. Again, Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. They've been around since 1977, and for those nearly 40 years, they have been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling your precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Or you can visit them online at rrbi.co. That's 800-874-9760. Or online, rrbi.co. Now, I am jumping into the Ask Me Anything. This is going to be a rapid-fire Ask Me Anything. And there's one question that was asked that I am not prepared to answer. And no, it was technically not asked for the Ask Me Anything. But it was a question from one of the state party chairs of the Libertarian Party asking if I had considered who I would wind up having on my cabinet should I be elected. And so I've started making that list, and there are only a few positions that I don't know of someone that I would wind up wanting to put in that position. Now, there are some of the positions that I was going through that I couldn't think of anybody offhand, but I knew of a resource that I could look to find someone. And so I've compiled that list, and again, there's a few things, or a few of the positions for the cabinet that I don't yet have someone in mind. Hopefully, I'll have that prepared and ready by next week. I'll get that posted on my website, again, darrellwperry.com, for the campaign. So the questions here from another state Libertarian Party chair. And I think he's actually doing these in written form, but I will attempt to answer all of these in audio and then transcribe my answers. So, question number one, how did you become a libertarian? And this is something that I've talked about quite frequently, and I actually detail in my book, A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty, to where it was in 1999. I was working as a traffic reporter, and one of the stations that I was reporting traffic on carried a radio show from a guy named Neil Bortz. Back in 1999, Neil Bortz was actually a libertarian. Not just a Libertarian Party member, but he also was an ideological libertarian. And I heard him talking about the fair tax, something that I now absolutely despise. But at the time, it was something that intrigued me. I looked into it. I found the world's smallest political quiz, took that, scored a 7,100. From there, learned about the Libertarian Party, and then I joined the Libertarian Party, and I've been an on-again, off-again member since, although I have been an on-again life member of the LP since 2008. So it was from 99 until 2008, I let my membership lapse, not necessarily for any sort of reasons of, I hate the Libertarians, but just, I forgot to send them money, or I forgot to renew, or this or that. Although there was a brief period of time where I intentionally let it lapse, but that's neither here nor there. I have been a card-carrying life member of the Libertarian Party since 2008. The next question, are there any libertarian principles you are particularly interested in? And I would say yes, all of them, but more importantly, the principle of equality of right. And what do I mean by equality of right? Because some people, they'll hear equal rights and they'll think that, that means that you have to make sure that women earn the same amount as a man, even though they might not be doing the same sort of thing or whatever. That's not what I mean. What I mean by equality of right is that under the law, no person has more right than anyone else. So I can't go around just randomly polluting people's yards, but there are companies that wind up getting, essentially, they get exemptions, if you will, from various things. Remember the BP oil spill that happened 6 years ago, where the federal government limited the liability of BP? Said that, no, BP, you don't have to pay all of this cleanup. Well, if I would have caused as much damage as BP did, I would have had to have paid all of the damages or done labor to wind up compensating everyone for the damages. And then there are other things to where, certain people in certain groups wind up having more rights than any member of the group. And, well, that's not consistent with libertarian philosophy. Libertarian philosophy says that you can't delegate a right that you don't have. So how is it that some group of people calling themselves, a school board or the city of fill in the blank, is then able to claim a portion of the fruits of my labor? I can't claim a portion of the fruits of anyone's labor, thus no one else can. That's equality of right. So that, I would say, is the biggest principle that I am particularly interested in. Do you have plans to grow and or improve the Libertarian Party? I would say that, yes, we improve the Libertarian Party by having people that are consistent libertarians be the voice of the party. No more watered-down messages, no more half measures. That is how you improve the party. Are there any pet issues that you are particularly interested in? And I would say that my pet issue is election law, particularly ballot access, but all things related to election law and, again, ensuring equality of right, meaning that no one has a special path to the ballot that others don't have. What can be done to improve the current economic situation? Well, I would say the first thing to do is get rid of the income tax, and from there work on abolishing all of the coercive taxes and funding everything consensually, because once you allow more people to have more of their money, then they're going to spend that money on other things, thus sharing the wealth, if you will. What is your thought on monetary policy? Should the Fed be abolished? Yes, absolutely. The Federal Reserve should be abolished and replaced with nothing. And overall monetary policy, the legal tender laws need to be abolished, because legal tender laws are what allowed the Federal Reserve to wind up being created in the first place. And yes, I know you could argue that, well, there was a central bank before there was a legal tender law in the first place, but most people don't understand that, and then most people don't understand all of the intricacies of how the legal tender laws came about. And I do not have enough time in this episode to wind up going into the history of legal tender laws and the fraud that was perpetrated by the tyrant Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln needed to fund his war, Abraham Lincoln then got the Treasury to issue paper, and then Abraham Lincoln got Congress to pass something called legal tender laws, saying that everybody in the Union had to accept these pieces of paper from the Treasury, even though the Treasury had never had the authority to issue money before that point. Thus, it's horrible, it's tyrannical, and it needs to be repealed. That's the show, and of course every Wednesday I answer your questions at email@fppradio.com.